everyone. Welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar for June 2026. I have several things to share with you today that I think are going to be of great interest to some of you, especially those of you who really like to do some cool things with forms. So I only really have two main topics to discuss today. One are the new enhancements, largely to forms, but also something new coming to process timelines, and there are several bug fixes. We're going to concentrate on the new enhancements, and we'll hold off on the bug fixes until the very end, and I'll cover them in whatever time that I have left. So the first thing we need to talk about is a brand new form control. It is called the Form Stepper Control. Actually, it's not even called the Form Stepper Control. It's just called the Stepper Control. So it is a new stepper control for the form. And what it allows you to do is to build custom progress bars on the form. You know, up until now, we have had the routing slip, and the routing slip is usually something you place at the bottom of the form, and it gives you all of the details of what has been happening. In the applications that we've been developing here at BP Logix, we have begun using progress bars on our forms to give users an idea of where they are in the process. This is especially helpful for longer, more complex processes where just reading the routing slip would really be kind of confusing. Being able to simplify it into a progress bar is much more helpful. So we're going to take a look at that first today, and it is this first control right up here at the very top of my design view of my form. This is what the stepper control will look like in design view, and it in fact is very similar to what it will look like when the form is running. There are two tabs that have to be configured to make the stepper control work properly, the General tab and the Steps tab. Let's just take a quick look at each one of these. The General tab gives you the overall look and feel, as well as the concluding condition that ends your progress on this tab. So at the very top, you have your name, which is the standard form control, and then you have your width. Now you can set the width of this control in either percent or pixels. So if you would like a smaller progress bar, maybe centered at the top of your form or something, you might want to size it in pixels. Obviously, you have to be a little careful about sizing because depending on the number of steps that you decide go into your process that you want to display as part of the progress bar, obviously the more steps that you put into it, the more horizontal space you're going to need to have it comfortably display attractively on your form. The height I am less sanguine about from a practical matter. We do not have the height set in percentage. There's a reason for that, because it would be an awful way of trying to figure out what the vertical scale of a control should be. So it is set in pixels. It actually appears about this size in terms of its height when the form runs. So what you see here is the visual placeholder is a relatively faithful representation of what it would look like on the form. So I wouldn't mess around too much with the height, although that option is available to you. There are two sections below that enable you to set the color of the icon that you want to use for each step, the label color, which is to say the text that appears below each of the icons, and then the step color, that would be the background color of each of the steps in the process. So if we look up here, there are 3 steps in the standard placeholder. So we can see that the label color is black in our example. The background color, the step color is sort of a light blue, and the icon colors are blue as well. I've kept the defaults for the not started, so it's going to appear grayscale, so it looks sort of grayed out before you get there, and I have just chosen red as my icon color for the steps that are highlighted and done. So any step that I'm currently in or steps that are complete will share the highlighted and done colors that you set here. There is a condition to complete the stepper. And I just have it set in this particular case to timeline status equals complete. So whenever the timeline ends, my stepper is complete. So everything just shows up as done. But each of the steps also have their own conditions. So let's take a look at the steps property for this. I have 3 steps here as well that I have created. I've called them form submitted, first review, and last review. And each step has a couple of properties. First is the icon number. So this just is a chooser that opens up the icon picker and enables you to choose the color. Don't worry too much about this icon color. That is governed by the color that you set on the general tab. So changing the icon color here doesn't really help us all of that much, but it does allow us to select the icon that we want to use for that particular step. The label is the text that will appear below the icon. So like over here where it says step 1, step 2, and step 3, those are the 3 labels. In this particular step, the label will be form submitted, as will the tooltip, because there's also a tooltip available for you to mouse over so that you can see additional text. I think I did that on one of the steps, and I don't remember which one it was. Okay, second review complete. So I added a different tooltip for that one and a different tooltip for this one as well. Each one of the steps can be moved up and down. By the way, there are move up and move down icons so that you can reorder the steps. And then there's a remove icon where you can just remove a step completely. At the very bottom, you have your active step conditions. So this is the condition that, when true, indicates that I am in a particular step in the process. So in this case, for form submitted, I have chosen new form instance equals no as my step. So when I open the form, I haven't reached the form submitted step yet because I'm in a new form instance. That status won't change until I go ahead and submit that form. There is a question, so let me take a look at that. Could this stepper control be used for a multi-section form, like it would have embedded sections? I'm not entirely sure I understand the question you're asking. Are you asking? I'm sorry. I'm not going to attempt to try to interpret it. Could you please clarify your question? I'm very sorry. I don't understand exactly what you're asking. If you could clarify that for me, I will come back to that question and we'll answer it whenever you can clarify it. Oh, I mean getting from one embedded section to the next and back. I'm sorry, I still don't know what you mean by getting from one embedded section to the next and back. The progress control is not really related in any way to sections on the form. So I'm not sure what your use case is or what you're trying to say. I apologize. I'm very sorry. I just don't understand how you're trying to use it. In general, the way that we have used it at BP Logix is we place it at the very, very top of the form. And so whatever sections or tabs or whatever that are appearing in the bottom of the form or in the main body of the form are really unrelated to the progress bar. You can think of the progress bar, or the stepper control as we're calling it. You can think of it more like a routing slip. It's really kind of a meta control for the form. It's not really related to any of the form fields on the form, although I suppose you could make it so by setting a condition. But it generally sets, at least in our use cases, at the very top of the form so that no matter where I am in the form and no matter what I'm doing, at the very top of the form, I can always see where I am in the process that I have decided to show for my progress bar. So more detailed questions than that, I think, would probably be answered elsewhere. Maybe I'll have to have a training webinar on these things. But anyway, that is our first big item, is the new stepper control. I actually kind of like it, and I think it would be something that I would use fairly regularly as far as doing implementation. You know what? Before we move on, we don't have to play around and just talk about this control. I mean, you know, we can look at it. So let me just run the form. So at the very top, everything is grayed out to match the gray colors that I'd placed on the configuration on the general tab. But now if I go ahead and submit my form, I will no longer be in new form instance. And there you go, my form is submitted. So I'm at the form submitted step. I haven't completed a review or anything, although I can complete one now. And having completed that, I've now done my first review. Things are working well. And now I'll go ahead and complete this. And that is my last review step. I added an extra step to this timeline for reasons that will be obvious a little later, but I can just go ahead and complete that and end my form. But there we can see how the progress bar works on that form. And we are going to have to go back here to talk about the next thing on the form, which is the tab strip. We have made some changes to how the tab strip works. If you're currently using Process Director, you are familiar with the tab strip and its limitation of 7 tabs. That is no longer true. We don't care how many tabs you have. Now, don't go wild and create 30 horizontal tabs. That's probably not a great idea. It is, however, a doable idea. Oh, and by the way, you can also use tab icons on the tab. Previously, if you wanted to show an icon in the text for the tab, you would just throw in the icon system variable to specify the icon number and its color. You no longer have to do that. That is just built into the control now, or at least it will be for 6.1.200. So here's what the tab strip control looks like now. As you may be aware, the tab strip control has had a significant evolution since 5.44.1104, and we have changed how it works a couple of times. We've added several new properties, including accessibility properties, highlight colors, and things like that. What we've done in this round is we have just gotten rid of that fixed tab functionality that used to be available for the tab strip control. Now there is an add tab button. So you can kind of cowboy your way through the form, and if you need to add a new tab, then you can just go ahead and do that. I can just go down here to this next row below the second tab, and I can go to layout and throw in a tab content that I will call T3. And then I can throw in the content itself. This is tab 3, and then I can drop in my tab content end. Now I have 3 tabs. So all I have to do now is go back up here, add my third tab, which we will just call T3, and we'll call it the third tab. Well, I didn't capitalize the rest of them, so I guess I won't capitalize this one. And then we'll pick an icon and an icon color for it. Now we do worry about the icon color here. So let's just pick a purple one, and we'll pick that icon, whatever it is, for my tab icon. And we'll go ahead and save our form. Well, let's see if we can just go ahead and save and run it from here. And if you were looking at the form, you may have noticed that there were 2 tabs previously. So this time we should see 3 tabs, and indeed we do. First tab, second tab, and third tab, with the tab highlighting as you either tab over or click on each of the tabs. So That's the new idea for the tab control. It makes it a little bit easier to configure, and you only have to add the number of tabs that you want. Now, if you want to add, and I got a tech support ticket on this yesterday where someone was sort of forced to use vertical tabs because the verbiage that they wanted in their tabs was fairly long. And if they tried to just stack them all horizontally, everything would all be higgledy-piggledy and people would have to scroll far to the right because there were like 7 tabs, each of which had a fairly lengthy phrase as the tab text. And it would just scroll off to the right side of the screen and force a lot of horizontal scrolling, and horizontal scrolling for accessibility reasons is always a bad thing. So what we now do is we measure the horizontal bounds of the form in whatever viewport you're looking at it in. And if you fill a row of tabs, we just go to the next row and throw in a second row of tabs. I don't think it's a perfect solution, and I'm not a huge fan of multi-rows of tabs for UI design as a personal matter, but the ability to do it is a big leap forward from just having tabs that just went right off of the right edge of the screen. So being able to have a multi-row horizontal tab now does at least give you a lot more freedom to play around with your tabs in horizontal mode and to be able to have those multi-row UIs for your tab interface if that's what you want. Of course, you still have the ability to use vertical tabs, and obviously if you're using vertical tabs, there are no real limitations on either the number of tabs or how far down they go on the page. Vertical scrolling is allowed, so you can have 200 tabs going down the side of your page, I suppose, although it is not a design practice that I would necessarily endorse. Next up, the data list control. We've added a couple of things for the data list control: column orderings and URL columns. Now, I'm not going to be able to fully demo this because I am on a version of 6.1.200 version that does not have all of the various threads from the different developers merged into this main. So not everything is going to work exactly right. And one of the things that won't work is being able to pull the URL. Also, I don't have a URL field in any of the data sources I have. I didn't really have the time, unfortunately, to make one, but let's take a look at the columns tab because that's where the big changes come. The first thing you notice is that we have these icons up at the top. We do have the move up and the move down icon, but for the columns, we do have drag and drop reordering for the column. So I just drag ID down here, and then as you see, it's sort of subtle, but as I drop it up, you can see I'm pointing with my finger at the screen, like you can see what I'm doing. You can see like the zip, it moves up and down. So when the zip jumps down, that tells me that I can go ahead and drop the ID right above the zip. So if you just follow, you can see all of the columns kind of shifting slightly as I move the ID up and down. So that's kind of cool, being able to just do that. And we're doing that in a lot of places now. It now works on I believe the form controls tab, or the custom task mapping tab of a form definition, being able to move items up and down. We have it in the columns of knowledge views now, where you can just manually drag and drop columns. And now we're doing it here in this particular control, in the data list control. The second thing we've added is URL functionality. So let's say that I had a field, I don't, but let's say that I had a field that was actually a URL, bplogix.com, whatever. I can specify that field as a URL, and I can label it in one of two ways. By default, I can use static text, so I could just use the tech link, and for every row in my data list, it will just show the text link for that particular column. Unfortunately, it won't if I run it here, but once everything is all put together, it will. The other thing I can do is I can use another column's text as the text to display for the hyperlink. So what I'm basically doing is I have a column that just has a URL. And so rather than displaying the plain URL in the data list, I can basically mask it by deciding whether to either give it static text to replace the text of the URL or to use the text of another field so that, again, the actual text of the URL is masked. And when the data list displays, that column will display as a URL, and whatever text that I put in, whether I use static text and use the word link as I've done here, or whether I put listed here, whatever that field is, the value of this field would actually be displayed as the hyperlink text, and the hyperlink would be clickable. So you would be able to click through and see whatever it was that you wanted to, whatever it was that the URL was linked to. So that adds up another dimension of functionality for the data list, which I think is probably going to get a fair amount of use. Indeed, one of the reasons why we have implemented this is because we did have a customer who specifically asked for it. So clearly there is a need for it out there. Finally, there is a new activity type for process timelines. It is the AI activity type. Now, this is still currently in development. In fact, I just saw 2 new tickets for it that were closed yesterday afternoon, just before I left work. So, still working on this, but we do have it in the UI, and we can look at it. So let's go over here to our enhancements timeline. And we will open up activity 3. And for activity 3, we are going to change its type from user to AI agent. And a couple of things are going to happen. Note, I now have a second row of tabs. So this is how your forms will work. You'll get a second row of tabs just like this. And the reason that I have this second row of tab is because there are 3 tabs that are applied whenever you use the AI agent activity. You still have participants, you can have participants. You still have results. So that is in addition to the AI agent tab. So as you know, as you pick different activity types, you get a different set of tabs here. So if I pick process, my participant and my results tabs disappear, as opposed to, a user activity. And for the AI activity, I still keep the participants and results tab, but I add the AI agent tab. We don't really need to look at the participants and results tab because we know what they do. However, here is how we configure the AI stuff. Now, there are still some things here that make it not actually work on my version. That's probably going to be a day or 2 before we get a fully unified development version that I can actually start testing on this, and that I can actually document this new user activity type. But basically, there is a prompt text that you can put in. And obviously you would connect this to a data source. Now, last month we talked about the AI data source, and I don't think I did create one. It wasn't on this machine though. It was on the other machine. So I don't have it created here, but we do have an AI data source type, which specifies the conditions that we want to use, or the connections that we want to use to whatever AI service that we're using. So you have your prompt, then you have the data source for whatever AI service that you're using. And then there are several functions here to enable you to get content from a document attachment, or to pull form field values, or to pull the value for the current process director user. And you can override these, so you can deny the AI the ability to do any of these things. You can have the AI prompt you if it wants to do any of those things, or you can simply allow it. We have the default permissions set to allow it because we're going to assume that at any given time you may need to do any of these things. However, you have the option once you configure your process timeline to go in and decide to either force the AI to prompt you before it invokes that particular process, or just to deny it the ability to do that at all. So if you wanted to say, okay, well, I don't want you to know anything about the user, you can just go ahead and hit deny there, and that will change the permission that the AI is given, and it simply won't be able to do any access for those for any of that user information. Like I said, it doesn't fully work yet. We've got the UI worked out. This is what I think it is largely going to look like as an end product. There may be some minor changes here and there, but I think this is largely it. It is going to be relatively complex in how it interacts with participants and how results are set on it. So there's still a little bit more work there to do, but this will enable you to incorporate AI workflows inside your process director processes. So I think this will be a big leap forward for those of you who are getting into the use of AI for process director. So we have 4 minutes left. So in that brief amount of time, we can talk about some of the bug fixes that we have also attacked. Many of these are related to custom tasks. HTML was not encoding properly for the text that you wanted to display for the advanced show alert CT. There was also a problem with backwards compatibility. So if you were on 5.44.1104 or earlier, some of the updated CTs simply weren't compatible. So we had to go back in and take a look at a couple of CTs to ensure that they were backwards compatible for 5.44 and below. So there were those. I thought there was another one here. Oh, yes, the run process CT. This was a weird one, and it required a relatively unusual configuration to run across it. But it was the run process CT. You had to set it to transfer form field values for all fields that had the same name. And you had to be going from a parent process timeline to a child process timeline. So it was going from a parent to a child. So there's this entire stack of configurations that would happen. But if you had that configuration stack, labels, sections, and buttons, their texts were all overwritten with blank values. And so that was a little bit of a problem. So there were some CT issues. There are some issues with the content list. It was either not refreshing properly, wasn't showing things properly, or as in the case of this very first one here, if you were viewing some of the non-content list pages, right? So let's say you're in looking at the edit user page in IT admin, which doesn't show up in the content list. The content list was sort of navigating itself over on the right-hand side to select some unrelated objects. Also, the expand all and collapse all icon was disappearing in some cases. So in any event, we have addressed those. There was another one where if I marked something as a favorite in the content list, it wouldn't show up in the home page as expected once you marked it as a favorite. So a lot of basically CSS and display issues there that were making things a little wonky in the content list. Also, another weird one, if you had a multi-select user picker, so you had a user picker, you had it set to multi-select many different users. For some reason, the label that was associated with it dissociated whenever you had the user picker set to multi-select mode instead of selecting a single user. That's an accessibility issue. As you probably know, the deadline that was supposed to hit in April for the Department of Justice to enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act for all public institutions, they have put a 1-year hold on that, so we don't have to be fully compliant until April 27th, 2027. So it's giving us an extra year of breathing space to ensure that we cover up the accessibility or that we cover the accessibility issues and fix them prior to that. We had a big push for the past 6 or 7 months in ensuring that we covered these accessibility issues. We've not slacked off on that. So in order to stay ahead of the game and ensure that there's not some mad rush in the first 3 months of 2027 to cover all the accessibility issues, we'd ask you to report any accessibility issues that you find. So you can use something like the Wave browser extension to check accessibility on your forms and what have you for end users. And if you find some, please don't hesitate to submit a technical support ticket to enable us to address that ticket so that when April 27th, 2027 rolls around, it's no big deal. It's just another day because we've already ensured that we have covered any accessibility shortcomings in the product. And with that, we are done and largely, not entirely, but largely on time. Hope you have a great month. I will look forward to speaking to you again next month. Until then, so long.